This kitchen never stops. Not at midnight, not during storms, not when the ship is taking 30-degree rolls. One mistake here doesn't just mean a bad meal, it means 3,000 people turning against you in the middle of the ocean. No exits, no replacements, no second chances. Most people are dreaming at 3 in the morning. Navy cooks are already cracking eggs. Culinary specialists, that's the official title, start their shift while the rest of the ship is still snoring. And we are not talking about a quiet little breakfast prep. We are talking about feeding 3,000 hungry sailors who will absolutely riot if their scrambled eggs are cold. Here is where it gets wild. An aircraft carrier does not serve 3 meals a day, it serves 4. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and something called mid-rats, midnight rations for the night owls working the graveyard shift. So the galley basically never stops. Well, almost never. They shut everything down between 2 and 4 in the morning for deep cleaning. That is it. 2 hours, then the whole machine fires back up again. Now you might think one big kitchen handles all of this. Nope. A typical carrier has 6 to 8 separate galleys spread across different decks. Why? Because when you are working on a floating city, nobody wants to walk 20 minutes for a cheeseburger. Makes sense, right? And the numbers are honestly absurd. One cook, a single person, might crack over 900 eggs in a single morning shift, just for scrambled eggs and omelets. That is more eggs than most restaurants go through in a week. My wrist hurts just thinking about it. But here is the part nobody talks about. These kitchens are hot, like really hot. With all the equipment running, ovens, grills, steam tables, temperatures regularly hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit. You're basically cooking food inside a sauna that is also inside a metal box floating in the ocean. Lovely. The cooks wear the same uniform as everyone else, except theirs comes with bonus sweat stains by 7 in the morning. It is glamorous work. And remember, this is just breakfast. They have not even started thinking about the 18,000 meals they will pump out across all 4 meal cycles today. But where does all that food actually come from? Because 3,000 people eat a lot, and the answer involves enough beef to make a Texas rancher blush. Now here's where things get wild. An aircraft carrier does not just carry planes, it's basically a floating Costco with jet fuel. We are talking 70 to 90 days worth of food crammed into every available corner of this ship. No dock runs, no quick grocery trips. Everything you need to feed 3,000 hungry sailors is already on board. Let me throw some numbers at you. 50,000 pounds of beef, 60,000 pounds of chicken, and eggs, 30,000 dozen. That's 360,000 individual eggs just sitting in cold storage, waiting to become someone's breakfast. My grandmother kept chickens, and I thought she had a lot of eggs. She would faint seeing this operation. The frozen storage rooms sit at minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Cooks literally wear parkas and heavy gloves when they go in for ingredients. 1 minute you are sweating in a 100-degree kitchen. The next you are dressed like you are visiting Antarctica. Frostbite and heat exhaustion in the same shift, only in the Navy. Then there is the dry goods situation. Picture storerooms the size of small grocery stores filled with flour, rice, canned vegetables, and about 14,000 varieties of hot sauce. Everything is organized by category and expiration date because nothing ruins a deployment faster than expired mayonnaise. Here's something most people miss, though. All this food isn't just shoved anywhere convenient, it's strategically placed low in the ship. Why? Balance. When you're dealing with rough seas, having 50,000 pounds of beef sliding around on the top deck would be catastrophic. The food literally helps keep the ship stable. Every single day at sea, the crew burns through roughly 18,000 meals across all 4 meal cycles. That's not a typo. 18,000. And someone has to track every last hamburger patty, every sauce packet, every frozen pea. But here's the problem. Even 90 days of supplies eventually runs out. And you can't exactly pull into a McDonald's drive-thru in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So how do you restock a floating city without ever stopping? Now here's where things get really interesting, because eventually even a 70-day food supply runs out, and you can't exactly pull into a McDonald's drive-thru in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So the Navy invented something called UNREP, Underway Replenishment. 2 massive ships sailing side by side, about 100 feet apart, both moving at 12 to 15 knots. That's roughly 15 miles per hour. It doesn't sound fast until you realize they are doing this for hours while transferring tons of food across steel cables. Picture two skyscrapers on wheels racing down a highway while playing catch with refrigerators. That's basically it. Pallets of frozen meat, cases of vegetables, hundreds of egg cartons, all zipping across on cables like the world's most expensive and dangerous zip line. One wrong move, one cable snap, and you've got 10,000 pounds of chicken falling into the ocean. Expensive mistake. Also, the sharks probably love it. But wait, it gets crazier. Sometimes helicopters do the job instead. They call it VERTREP, vertical replenishment. CH-46 and MH-60 helicopters can deliver 200,000 pounds of supplies in a single day. Just dangling pallets of food beneath them like grocery bags hanging off your handlebars. Except these bags weigh several tons. And here is what surprised me. Fresh produce and milk always get loaded first. Why? Because after 2 weeks at sea, lettuce becomes a luxury item. Sailors start treating a fresh apple like it is made of gold. The frozen stuff can wait, but that salad is priority one. The supply department tracks every single item through a computerized inventory system. We are talking hamburger patties, ketchup bottles, even those little hot sauce packets. Nothing escapes the spreadsheet. My grandmother could not track her coupons this well. The real kicker is this. A major underway replenishment operation needs over 200 sailors working together. Chain of command, precise timing, constant communication, and they can transfer an entire month's worth of food in under 8 hours. But getting the food aboard is just step one. Somebody still has to cook all of it. Now here is where things get interesting. You do not just wake up one day and cook for 3,000 hungry sailors. That is a learned skill. The Navy calls their cooks culinary specialists. Sounds fancy, right? A Nimitz-class carrier has about 100 to 120 of them. Do the math. That is one cook for every 25 sailors. My local diner has better ratios than that. Before these cooks ever step foot on a ship, they spend 8 weeks at Fort Lee, Virginia. Basic training for spatulas. They learn how to scale a recipe designed for 4 people up to 300 portions. That is not cooking. That is industrial mathematics with gravy. But here's what surprised me. The food budget is over $15 million annually, just for ingredients. That is more than most restaurants make in a decade. And one officer, the food service officer, manages every single dollar. No pressure or anything. The hierarchy works like this. Entry-level cooks handle the grunt work. Cracking 900 eggs, peeling vegetables. The stuff that destroys your back. Senior cooks, called first-class petty officers, run individual galleys. They're managing 15 to 20 junior sailors while making sure lunch does not become a disaster. Then, there is a secret weapon nobody talks about. Mess cranks. These are not professional cooks at all. They're regular sailors, mechanics, technicians, whoever pulled from their normal jobs for 90-day rotations in the kitchen. Need help serving? Mess crank. Dishes piling up? Mess crank. It is like getting voluntold for kitchen duty, except it lasts 3 months. The shifts rotate around the clock. 8 hours on, 16 hours off. Sounds reasonable until you remember the galley runs 22 hours daily. Someone is always cooking. Someone is always cleaning. Someone is definitely burning something. A single cook might prepare 300 portions of one recipe at once. That family lasagna recipe your grandmother uses, multiply everything by 75. Hope she wrote good instructions. Speaking of those massive batches, getting food onto trays fast enough is its own challenge entirely. All right, so the food is prepped, the cooks are ready, and 3,000 hungry sailors are about to descend on the mess hall like locusts on a wheat field. Here's the challenge. You have got 90 minutes to feed everyone. Not 3 hours. Not whenever people feel like showing up. 90 minutes, then the galley needs resetting for the next meal. The solution is assembly line precision that would make Henry Ford jealous. Multiple serving stations open at once. Sailors flow through like a well-organized traffic system. An average of 4 minutes from entering the line to sitting down with a full tray. That is faster than most fast food drive-thrus, and nobody is asking if you want fries with that. Steam tables keep everything at exactly 140 degrees or higher. Why so specific? Bacteria. The ocean environment is humid, warm, and basically a petri dish waiting to happen. One temperature mistake, and suddenly half your flight deck crew is in sick bay. Not ideal when you are launching fighter jets. The mess halls hold about 300 people at once. Do the math, that is 10 full rotations of butts and seats during a single lunch service. Sailors eat fast because someone else needs that chair. Now, eating the same thing every day would drive anyone crazy. So the menu rotates on a 21-day cycle. 3 weeks before you see the same Tuesday special again. And holidays, that is when cooks really show off. Turkey with all the fixings for Thanksgiving, prime rib for Christmas, even lobster tails make an appearance. But here is something most people do not consider. Food waste gets tracked like a hawk watching a mouse. Anything over 10% waste per meal triggers a full review. Too much mashed potato ending up in the garbage? Smaller portions next time. It sounds strict, but when you are burning through 18,000 meals daily, waste adds up faster than my dad's credit card bill at a hardware store. Oh, and those flight deck workers? They are consuming 6,000 calories a day, nearly triple what a desk worker needs. Which brings up an interesting question about the equipment making all this possible. None of this works without equipment built for a war. The tilting skillets are absolute beasts. These things cook 200 pounds of ground beef at once. Taco Tuesday, one skillet handles the entire ship's worth of meat in a single batch. Your home stove would burst into flames just thinking about it. Then there are the ovens, stacked 4 high, running nonstop, pumping out 96 sheet pans of cookies in under 2 hours. That's not baking, that's manufacturing with chocolate chips. But here's what surprised me most. They bake their own bread. Fresh, every single day. 800 to 1,000 rolls coming out of those ovens daily, plus burger buns, sandwich loaves, and pizza dough when morale needs a boost. The smell alone probably keeps half the crew from going crazy. Now, washing 3,000 trays per meal sounds like a nightmare, right? Well, the Navy solved that problem with dishwashers that could sanitize a crime scene. Water temperature hits 180 degrees Fahrenheit, no chemicals needed. Plates go in dirty, come out hospital-grade clean in seconds. Your home dishwasher takes an hour and still leaves crud on your coffee mug. The mixers deserve their own appreciation. Walk-in models that handle 80-pound batches of muffin batter. 80 pounds. My grandmother's KitchenAid started smoking when she made a double recipe of cinnamon rolls. These machines eat that for breakfast. Literally. And the potato peelers? Absolute game changers. 400 pounds of potatoes. 15 minutes. Done. Perfectly peeled and ready for mashing, frying, or whatever else the menu demands. A human cook doing that by hand would need an entire 8-hour shift and probably develop carpal tunnel by week 2. Every piece of equipment runs hot, runs loud, and runs constantly. Breakdown during lunch rush, and you've got a serious problem. That's why maintenance crews check everything daily. One busted oven means 400 fewer portions per hour. All this machinery keeps sailors fed, but feeding bodies is only part of the job. Some sailors have special requirements that make everything more complicated. Not everyone on the ship eats the same meal. Managing that is harder than it sounds. Religious dietary needs come first. Halal, kosher, Hindu, vegetarian. These are not optional accommodations. They are requirements. The galley maintains separate prep areas to avoid cross-contamination. Different cutting boards, different utensils. A Muslim sailor's chicken cannot touch the same surface where someone just sliced pork chops. It is like running 3 restaurants in one kitchen, except the kitchen is rocking back and forth. Then there is medical stuff. Sailors with food allergies register through sickbay and carry special ID cards. Galley staff can check these cards at serving stations. Peanut allergy? That is flagged system-wide. Shellfish sensitivity? Marked in the database. One wrong ingredient could send someone to the ship's hospital. Or worse, flight surgeons actually monitor crew nutrition across the entire ship. If too many sailors start showing vitamin deficiencies in their blood work, the medical team calls the galley and asks for more leafy greens on the menu. It is like having a doctor judge your cooking. Every sailor is essentially a patient, whether they know it or not. Now, what about the captain? Does he eat better than everyone else? Kind of, but also not really. The captain and senior officers have their own wardroom, a fancier dining area with tablecloths and actual plates instead of trays. But the food is the same galley, same ingredients, same cooks. They just arrange it prettier. Maybe add a garnish, put the mashed potatoes in a little swirl instead of a splat. Leadership gets presentation, not a different menu. And the weirdest stat I found, deployed sailors gain an average of 7 pounds during a 6-month cruise. 7 pounds, despite working 12-hour shifts in brutal heat. Stress eating is real, my friends. When you're floating in the middle of the ocean for months, that midnight slice of cake hits different. But here is something nobody talks about until things go wrong. The ship keeps emergency rations completely separate from regular food storage. While most of the ship sleeps, a different world wakes up. Mid-Rats kicks off at 11 p.m. and runs until 1 in the morning. And no, it is not some sad afterthought meal. For roughly 800 sailors, this is their breakfast, lunch, and dinner rolled into one. We are talking about the pilots who just landed jets in pitch darkness, the mechanics crawling over aircraft at 2 a.m., security teams patrolling corridors when everyone else is dreaming. These folks do not get the luxury of normal mealtimes. So what is on the menu? Comfort food. Pure, unapologetic comfort food. Hamburgers, hot dogs, pizza reinvented from dinner leftovers. Whatever the day shift did not finish gets a second life. That chicken from lunch becomes chicken sandwiches. The mashed potatoes get loaded up with cheese and bacon. Here's what surprised me, though. The night crew runs dangerously lean. We are talking 8 to 10 cooks handling everything. Compare that to 30 or more during the lunch rush. It is like running a restaurant with a skeleton crew every single night. But here is where it gets interesting. Coffee consumption absolutely explodes during mid-Rats. The entire ship brews over 1,200 gallons daily. That is not a typo. 1,200 gallons. Most of it disappears between midnight and 4 a.m. I have seen sailors treat coffee like it is a food group. And honestly, at that hour, it basically is. The atmosphere hits different too. Quieter, more relaxed. Sailors actually sit and talk instead of inhaling food in 4 minutes flat. It is almost peaceful. Almost. Because here is the catch. A cook finishing their midnight shift has probably been awake for 12 hours straight, and they do not get to stumble off to bed. Every single surface needs scrubbing, and every piece of equipment needs cleaning. The 3 a.m. breakfast crew is already waiting at the door. That tiny window between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. is the only time the galley goes silent. Then the whole thing starts over again.